Protests in South Africa are almost always a vibrant affair. Each time there's mass action, police get ready to control crowds. At the same time, people prepare for police action. Incidents like that of Andries Dutton and the Marikana massacre are difficult to forget. Even students are not protected. Roads must fall and fees must fall. Activists have felt the heavy-handedness of police. Yesterday, 2 police officers were charged with the murder of 26-year-old TUT student Katlego Monareng. Today, 2 police officers have been charged after killing 2 suspects who allegedly murdered 2 security guards. Now, a draft of new picketing rules have been released for public comment, but one controversial proposition is that unions need to help any security organization find criminals during protests. So should unions be helping police? Stanley Malemaja from Right to Protest believes not, but the DA's shadow minister for Labour, Michael Bagraim, says the rules are well structured. In fact, maybe let's start with you, Mr. Bagraim. Then the rules are contained in a government gazette released by the Labour Minister, Mildred Oliphant, in September, and they're quite wide-ranging. They come off the back of other proposed changes to the Labour Relations Act, which have gone through Parliament. What is broken? What are these rules aimed at fixing?
Well, there's a lot that's broken, and in fact the unions should be celebrating these rules, because every time we have a strike, the police arrive, management complain, management get interdicts, and the unions then complain afterwards and say that the interdicts have broken the strike. Here we have a set of rules to avoid that sort of dispute. We have agreed that in fact there has to be picketing rules. COSATU agreed with that, and big business agreed, and so did government. That was agreed 2 years ago. So all we're doing now is that we're putting the flesh on the bones of the picketing rules. We've already got picketing rules that are the default picketing rules. And once you've got that, then you're actually indemnifying unions that as long as they stick to the picketing rules, then management can't run to the labour courts and get those interdicts. We've also got many court cases, and we've seen it over the years, that the management have gone to the courts after the strike and have sued them for damages. We saw a big one here in Cape Town with the security workers, for instance. And their defense was that other people other than the workers joined up with the strike and caused the damage. Now with these picketing rules, we can't have outsiders coming in, and we've got a nice straitjacket where we can have the rules in line with what everyone expects to see in a proper, peaceful strike. So I think the union should be applauding this. They should be very happy. And it certainly doesn't stand in the way of strike by any stretch of the imagination.
Stanley Malemaja, let me bring you in here. Michael Bagraim says this doesn't stand in the way of striking and the right to picket, which is enshrined in our Constitution. Do you see it that way?
No, Tula Sizwe, I don't see it that way. I mean, this is definitely a way to stifle the right to picket as provided in the Constitution. I mean, looking at the Labour Relations Act, if there's a dispute between the employer and the employee, the first process is that they have to refer to a bargaining council or the CCMA, and where that the dispute is not resolved after 30 days, then the commissioner must issue a certificate of non-resolution. But now what the new picketing rules are doing is that before the certificate of non-resolution can be issued, the commissioner and the trade union must first agree on picketing rules. And that gives unfettered power to the commissioner to put whatever limitation that he or she wishes to prove on the picketing. And another thing, what it does is that it gives the employer ample time to further undermine the right to picket, because the picketing rules provide that one must state the time and the place when the strike is going to take place. That gives the employer ample time to hire new staff if he wants to do that, or to just do any action that can frustrate the employers.
Michael, surely you share these concerns. I mean, the There does seem, certainly according to one reading of the new rules, including the amendments to the Labour Relations Act, there does seem to be some kind of putting as many administrative hurdles as possible to the right to strike. I mean, if for instance, before the non-resolution or what is known as a strike certificate is issued, you've got to first agree on the picketing rules, and if the two parties, that is Labour and the employer, cannot agree, then, while seemingly unfettered powers are then handed over to the commissioner of the CCMA. Surely that's problematic.
No. I don't have a problem at all, and that's not correct. The parties have to go to mediation. We've had that since the inception of the labour law. At the mediation, the parties are asked to agree on picketing rules. We're looking for a peaceful picket. We're looking for peaceful strikes. We don't want people to be shied away from investing in this country, and we don't want the violence. So once the parties can't agree on the picketing rules, well, then there's a set of picketing rules that are there enshrined in the Labour Relations Act. The Minister has regulations, and it's default picketing rules. Now, those default picketing rules, if you read them carefully, are absolutely solid. There's nothing wrong with them. And for anyone to say that there shouldn't be rules of engagement is just looking for anarchy. And that's not what we're all about in this country. We're all about peaceful strike. That's what we're looking for.
But I guess what people are taking issue with is not really that there shouldn't be rules, is some of these rules, the way that they are structured. I mean, let me ask you, for instance, about the rule that says, you know, picketers, it lists the things that picketers can do. Right, such as the right to be addressed by a union representative, they can chant slogans and sing, etc., etc. But in instances where the rules now fall on the commissioner of the CCMA to determine where there's no agreement between the two parties about the rules that should be applied, actually the commissioner can curtail those, including the right to sing songs and chant slogans. Surely that's a problem.
No, that's not correct. There is a default set of rules. So if the parties can't agree, it won't be a commissioner coming in like some sort of eagle overhead and saying these are the rules you're going to have. That's not correct. What is correct is that there will be a default set, which is already written out and has been agreed by COSATU and big business. Small businesses haven't agreed, but big business has. And so that's absolutely not correct. There's no curtailment at all on the right to strike. Obviously, a court always has, a Labour court or a high court always has a right to step in. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the courts out of the situation. We're trying to make it more peaceful. So what you've got is the CCMA, which is a government body, and you've got a commissioner who looks at both sides of the story and says, let's keep this peaceful, let's keep the strike in terms of the rules of engagement. So, I don't believe that's correct at all.
What about this proposal that says, you know, the representatives and people involved in organizing the picket action should actually ensure that there's cooperation with police, including in investigations? Some have seen that as basically asking, you know, union members to basically keep an eye on one another and in a way sort of spy on one another during strike action.
I mean, look, that is now shifting duties from the police officials to the conveners of the protest or the strike, if I can put it that way, to say that where there's a protected strike and something unlawful happens, then the conveners bear the duty to assist the police or any private investigation to conduct their investigation and actually nab down the perpetrator. That is a shift of duty. At the point in time where there's a protest, conveners are engaged to make sure that the disparities of their trade union members are actually heard, to say that any message that they want to put forward to the employer, it actually put forward in a way that is desired by the protesting employees. But now how do you then now shift the double-barrel duty to say that while you are busy chanting, while you are having your protector strike, then it is also your duty to keep...
But in a way, I mean, that could address the issue where, I mean, in many instances, you'll see scenes of violence, and then you'll have the union saying it wasn't our members that were involved in this violence, it was Asians provocateurs. So, I mean, in a way, this could work, couldn't it?
No, I doubt that it can work. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword to such a point that how do you now... These people are not even skilled to be able to draw the difference as to when did a member of the union cross the line. I mean, already we are speaking about the strict limitations that can be put. If you chant a certain song, then what's going to happen to that? Must I now report you because you sang a certain song and a protest was placed on hold because of the song that you sang?
Mr. Bagram, final words to you.
Well, that's not what they're trying to do. What we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid another Marikana. We're trying to avoid bloodshed. We're trying to avoid people being massacred. The bottom line is shop stewards, union officials are responsible people. They need to ensure that the strike is responsible, that it doesn't turn violent, it doesn't destroy property, private property, it doesn't destroy human life. We need to ensure that we have a proper strike and that right to strike remains intact. The bottom line is the unions need to be responsible in the strikes. They've been sued by so many companies, and the double-edged sword is the reality. The reality is that unions need to be responsible, need to make sure that the strikes are properly managed and curtailed, and if it means that you have to bring in the police, then it means the unions have failed. And we're hoping that that's not the case. We're hoping that the union management will come in, control the people, and ensure that we have a peaceful picket and that the strikes are successful for what they're putting out to be in the first place.
All right,
we
thank you.
can't expect unions just to go on anarchy.
All right, thank you so much there. That is Michael Bagram, who is the DA's Shadow Minister of Labour, and Stanley Malemacha, who's been joining me here in studio from Right to Protest. Don't forget, you can have your say on this, including on Twitter, using that hashtag that we gave you a bit earlier on. Well, Checkpoint is up next. They are looking into male rape. In the absence of support structures, how do men cope with the shame and stigma of being raped? Then I'll be back at 9 p.m. with more news for you. Stay with us.